one of the themes of the book is that, so much of what we think is true in life is not. And so much of what we judge, is really totally different. And certainly myself, I went from, having very humble beginnings to hanging out with all the people with all the money and the celebrities to then being in prison. So I've certainly been exposed to a great variety in our country. And it's part of the theme of how we label things and what we take at face value from the news, from media, whatever it would be, that so many times is totally untrue.
Hey, it's Rocky. Welcome to Rich Your Soul. Today's guest is Jeffrey Martinovich, who went from being the CEO of a hedge fund to prison. He's going to share the lessons he learned along the way. Imagine it's 12 months from now, and you've achieved your major life goals. How does it feel to be in the best shape of your life? To wake up energized, excited about the day? To have great relationships and friends who support you and propel you forward? How does it feel to have an excess of money, to be able to make the choices you want? To be fearless and open to trying new adventures? Imagine being connected to the universe and it providing everything you desire. It's possible over time, and your past does not dictate your future. The only thing holding you back from this vision is you. It's time to take control of our thoughts and use them to our advantage. Welcome to Rich Your Soul, where we achieve our dreams and create harmony to health, wealth, relationships, time, and spirituality. If you have not had a chance to listen to episodes 1 through 9, I encourage you to go back and listen to the framework behind Rich Your Soul and how to create the life of your dreams. You can also find all the show notes for this episode at richyoursoul.com. Today we have 2 quotes, and they're both from his book. The first one is from Martin Luther King Jr. The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of convenience and comfort, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. The second is from Abraham Lincoln. Property is the fruit of labor. Property is desirable. It's a positive good in the world. That someone should be rich shows that others may become rich, and hence is just encouragement to industry and enterprise. Let not him who is houseless pull down the house of another, but let him labor diligently and build one for himself, thus by example, ensuring that his own shall be safe from violence when built. Each of these quotes go to character. Who are you when times are tough? That's when you really get to know who that person is and what their values are. When life is good, it's easy to hide that. Sometimes we get duped. The second goes to building wealth. Even if we distributed all the money in the world equally to everyone in the world, within no time, we'd be back to where we are today. Is greed bad? Yes, in certain situations, when it's all about the money. But many people have built wealth by helping others, and that's good because they provide value and they make the world a better place for all of us. Before we continue, let's check in with last week's action step, which was to check out the Values, Purpose, and Goals course from our guest, Jonathan Dio. It's about doing what we just talked about, defining your values and then living them, even when the going gets tough. It's very easy for money to corrupt people. Or should I say, corrupt people are easily swayed by money. I remember an ad a long time ago on the radio. It stated, "Sports doesn't build character, it reveals it." That's very true. And most of this is defined at a very young age. I just recently heard someone say, you can't teach a work ethic. I find that interesting. I wonder how much of this is learned and how much of it is just the way we're wired. Which begs the question, do you understand your wiring and how it reveals your actions? We may not be able to change it, but we can compensate for its negatives and play to its strengths. But first, we need to know, who are we? Our guest went on that journey. I have to say, when I first received the book in the mail and read about the author, I didn't know if it was a good fit for us. But then I started reading the book, and I couldn't put it down. About halfway through, I reached out and said, let's get Jeff on the show. Jeffrey Martinovich is a first Gulf War veteran, MBA, and CEO of JAM Accelerator, a business consulting and incubation firm. Previously, Jeff was founder and CEO of MICG Investment Management, a billion-dollar wealth management firm. After the 2008 financial crisis, Jeff rejected 3 government plea offers, resulting in a 14-year prison sentence. Yet, the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals reversed this twice. 2 U.S. District Court justices were removed, and after nearly 7 years, he was released to home confinement in May of 2020 to begin rebuilding his life. Let's meet Jeff and learn from his wisdom. Welcome to Richer Soul, Jeffrey Martinovich. It's great to have you join us today.
Thank you, sir. Very happy to be here.
And I am excited to learn from you today. Let's start at the beginning. What was it like when you were growing up, and how much did your family and school teach you about money?
Great question. Boy, I've written some blogs about how I believe our school system does not teach about money literacy on purpose. I can get on a rant there about maybe they don't want us all to know maybe how simple it is sometimes. Those in control can keep control. So, I do have some strong opinions on that. My father, it was a great, Horatio Alger story where didn't have anything growing up and started teaching himself and bought a few rental pieces of real estate, which I had to paint and mow the lawns and all that. I always said, I thought we were supposed to get paid for this part. But so it was a great example of, teaching yourself. And I had a lawn mowing business in junior high and high school, and it saved up a little bit of money. And one day I was looking in the garage and I saw one of my customers had a 1975 Firebird, all covered up under there. And I inquired about it, and he said that he was moving that week, and for an easy $500 cash, he'd let me take it off his hands. And earlier in the year, I had asked my father about, buying some stock, because I had never known anything about it. And about a year earlier, I bought a small amount of money, $250, into Cedar Fair, which Cedar Point Amusement Park in Ohio. And by pure luck, we made some great money. And I cashed in my stock, which had almost doubled, paid the cash for my car that day, and then bought the coolest car I'd ever had. And from that moment, I was hooked on the stock market and investing, because I saw this tangible reward for that, from the hard work, the investment, and then the reward. And so that's when I decided I wanted to be a stockbroker back then. After I was out of the Air Force, I had the opportunity, and that's how I got into investing.
So we're going to get into your investing story. Let's take a step back. Let's rant for a minute. Why do you think schools don't teach about financial literacy?
Well, I think it's horrific about how we learn about all these other things, but 95% of our success and our family's success and our freedom and our ability to have safety and security, unfortunately, in the world comes down to money. And in society, we have to know how to make money, how to save money, how to invest money if we want to better our lives and our families and our generations. but it's very clear that, I mean, it's almost non-existent in most of our education. And I truly believe, without being too much of a conspiracy theory, is that it is by design that if we really did spend the time from first grade teaching all of our children, which some parents do, a very small percent, of how to earn money, how to budget money, what it's worth, what the value is, how to save and then buy things and feel the rewards, that our children would grow up with so much more knowledge about how to take care of themselves. They would not need to rely on a big government. They would not need to rely on a big social safety net because they would be rugged individualists to take care of themselves. And they would know philanthropy and how to take care of their communities and their neighbors and their charities. And because, as you know, and you're such a great teacher of this, there's no rocket science happening in the finance department. It is a lot of basic fundamentals that I believe should be right there with the 3 R's. And that would be a huge jolt to the GDP of our country, to the social fabric of our country. And I believe we have to promote that as strong as we promote anything else in education.
Most colleges would probably go out of business if students knew how much they cost.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. That's right. I know. And it's kind of like we keep it like behind the green curtain. And I, there can't be any other reason why, because it should be right on the front boilerplate.
It's funny because when you go buy a home loan or a car loan, they tell you, here's your loan, here's your percentage rate, here's what your payment is, here's for how many years your payment is, and here's what the total you are going to pay back is.
Isn't that always a shocking number? Yeah.
Well, it used to be a shocking number when interest rates were high. It was astronomically shocking. Today, with low interest rates, it's like, okay. In college, they go, hey, we have a grant for you and this loan. Just sign here, press hard. We're not even giving you a copy. And they come out with trouble.
Man, it's just unrecoverable with such a tremendous amount of debt. And possibly they might have gone on a education path that's not going to allow them to take care of themselves. And I am totally a great advocate of, very general liberal education. But also, at some point, we all have to kind of take care of ourselves, too. So that you got to get a little bit of both.
That you do. All right. So you get out of high school. You've got this bug to invest in stocks, and you were quite successful. So I'd love to hear that story. How do you go from there, from these humble beginnings to essentially, right, billion-dollar wealth manager? Right.
Well, I was very fortunate. I went to the Air Force Academy in Colorado, which sent me out to Virginia, and I was in the first Gulf War. And I really had a lot of great mentors, really smart people. And the Air Force took amazing care of me. They also helped fund my MBA at William and Mary here. And that gave me a lot of exposure to the financial markets. So I am a product of having great mentors and great opportunities that exposed me to some really good education. And so through sports and the military, I had also built a little bit of drive. And when I got out to be a rookie stockbroker, I didn't have any money, didn't know anybody with any money, but I worked for a great firm. It was called Wheat First Securities in Virginia. And it was like a mini Merrill Lynch type of firm, but it was really run by super sharp people, extremely ethical, extremely bright, really did business the right way. And it really gave me a great foundation. And so since I didn't know anybody, I was kind of the king of investing $100 a month into the mutual fund, and it takes a long time to build. So I knew I had to just enlist a lot more clients than everybody else did. So, how do you do that? You just outwork everybody. I wasn't the brightest guy, but I know I was working double the amount of hours as everyone else. And eventually volume works there. And I started to grow and grow. And then eventually they helped me start my own firm. It was a good win-win for their organization. And over the course of hiring a lot of people that were a lot smarter than myself, we were able to have about 100 people, $1 billion, 3,000 clients. We ended up in 46 states, up and down the East Coast, mostly New York and DC. And approaching 2008, it was an incredible success story.
And then there was a year of reckoning for everybody.
It
was a year of I wasn't even, I was involved, but going into 2008, I'm like, I don't own real estate, right? I know these markets are crazy, the way they're lending money. That's not my problem, right?
Right.
But it was because what it came back and did to the stock market was astronomical.
Right.
So what happened?
Well, it's funny you say that. I actually merged in a CPA firm in 2005, something like that. And some of our CPAs were quitting the business and becoming mortgage brokers. And I said to myself, is that the top of the market? That's a great sign, when everybody's quitting their jobs and getting into whatever business. But what happened was, we went through 2008 and we survived that. Boy, but it was painful. It was very tough. But we had a group of really good people, really smart people. We made it through. But what I really miscalculated, one of the 1,000 things I've miscalculated, was the regulatory backlash that came through there. As you know, everybody on Wall Street, they all exchanged a few $1 trillion and some slaps on the wrist. And that's what everybody remembers. But people don't realize that the SEC and FINRA and those organizations went around and shut down a couple thousand smaller firms, second-tier firms, to show that they were, policing the industry. And how they did it is they would, allege all these nefarious activities. And it's such a behemoth force to reckon with. And so by that time, we had a mortgage company, insurance company, asset management, investment banking, all these different things. But we also had 3 hedge funds. And when our good friend Bernie Madoff came out, the hedge fund word became quite a terrible word, right? If you remember back then, all clients saying, hey, I'm not in anything called a hedge fund, am I? And it was a terrible panic. And so the regulators really went around and what they did in many fellow CEOs I was involved with had similar circumstances. They alleged that in private hedge funds that we mispriced one solar industry stock in one of our funds, that when Solyndra and the Obama administration had lost all that money in solar companies, this small company went out of business also. So they went back and said that 3 years earlier, we must have priced it too high, and because we knew that 3 years later it was going to go out of business. And so I, of course, said, well, that's one of the craziest things I've ever heard. But they said, sign this settlement and everybody will move forward. And, I came from the Air Force Academy, and we try to live by an honor code, and we try to do, the right character and integrity. And I had this moment in my life. It was one of the hardest moment of my life that I had to say, you know what? Nobody in our company and all of our fleet of CPAs and lawyers say that nobody did do anything wrong. And so I rejected 3 government plea offers and decided to go to trial against the federal government of the United States. Now, who's crazy enough to do that?
Not when they're coming after you. It's a lot easier when you're going after them.
Maybe so. Yes. And later on, somebody told me, 98.5% of these end in convictions. And I said, oh boy, that's a good number to know.
Not a good number. So what ended up happening?
Well, we went to trial, and the prosecution, just kind of out of the movies, shows pictures of your cars and homes and beach homes all every day to the jury. And your defense tries to explain hedge fund valuation accounting to the jury. And it's not much of a contest. And it was terrible. I was toast. And after 5 weeks, I was convicted, and through a whole bunch of crazy narratives ended up being sentenced to 14 years in federal prison. So I went from one night running $1 billion organization to the next night being sentenced to 14 years in prison.
That's crazy. It's definitely a change of lifestyle from what you're probably used to.
It definitely was. Oh, man, what a story.
So what were the 14 years like?
When you go to prison, they take the $1 billion. So first of all, if you're going to defend yourself, you're pretty much on your own. So I took a job in the prison law library, and I started helping out everyone else with their cases. And boy, I didn't know anything. But, I ended up helping about 300 people with their cases and had a little bit of luck, very small little luck, because there isn't a lot of goodness there. And I learned a lot for myself and was incredibly fortunate. I ended up reversing the trial court's decisions twice. The appeals court removed 2 federal judges from my case. We uncovered all kinds of terribleness that was keeping me at a higher security, violent prison than I was supposed to be in. I wasn't in one of those camps like you see in the movies. And 7 years later, with COVID and all the changes, I was able to make it home about 1.5 years ago, to home confinement, back to my family. It was a miracle that we made it. And that was after about 500 motions and actions, literally, which were 99.9% denials. We eventually made it home.
Congrats.
Thank you. It was quite a journey. And, there was a whole bunch of people hurt during this whole affair. Our shareholders, our employees, our clients. So I have a long way to go on a mission to kind of, certainly not just restore myself, but restore so much of everybody who was affected by this. So I've made the big step so far. We got a long way to go, and we're hoping to write an amazing final chapter to this book.
And I'm sure you will.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the confidence.
So we're actually here to talk about a different book. And I would love to know what inspired you to write the book, Just One More, The Wisdom of Bob Vukovich.
Well, when I was in prison, I had written some business books and taught and created some business courses that for all of us to take while we were in there. And I had about 15 chapters left over, which really weren't business, but they were more life lessons from mentors that I've had the pleasure to be exposed to. And so I created this separate book. And then I remembered that we as humans for millions of years have learned best around telling stories around campfires. So I created the parable, the narrative nonfiction story of Bob. So it's really interwoven with about 15 life lessons, which I think are very, very critical and important, and were so important to me that I wanted to pass on. But also this story of Bob as this man who has been knocked off the top of the mountain and is in a deep, deep valley. And it's all about, as he mentors the young Cole Johnson, will he maybe find his own footing, maybe his own confidence, and get back in that game of life?
And throughout the book, it's kind of a mystery of what's going on with Bob. You know he's lost, but yet here he is kind of living this life that's kind of still vibrant, but
Right.
still kind of reserved.
Right. Bob still has his $4,000 suits from his previous life, but his French cuffs are frayed and there's holes in the bottom of his shoes, and you can't quite figure out, what's the deal with this guy. And I think it's, a little bit of a metaphor of life, because certainly one of the themes of the book is that, so much of what we think is true in life is not. And so much of what we judge, is really totally different. And certainly myself, I went from, having very humble beginnings to hanging out with all the people with all the money and the celebrities, to then being in prison. So I've certainly been exposed to a great variety in our country. And it's part of the theme of how we label things and what we take at face value from the news, from media, whatever it would be, that so many times is totally untrue.
Well, for the news, it's just about sensationalism. It doesn't matter whether or not it's real or not real. Because I remember back in like 2009, 2010, Congress was, having General Motors fly to, come in and tell us all these things. And,
right.
And then they're yelling at them because they came in on the private jet. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, the congressmen are all going back on the private jet.
Exactly. Even the Save the Planet, Save the Climate ones are using their private jets.
Yes, so it is all a game. And I think as you peel the onion, you start to see that.
You're exactly right. And, I was never exposed to anything like that. And so a lot of the attorneys and the consultants now tell me how naive I was to take all this on. And they're totally true. They're totally right. I was never exposed to a lot of that badness. And it's really kind of I sound so silly saying it, but, I grew up in Ohio and we worked hard and I went to the Air Force Academy, and then I was in the military, and, I got out into business and we had a lot of success. And so I just really wasn't exposed, knowing that, you eventually become a target, and you do have kind of a target on your back. And there are people out there that their self-interest may be opposed to your self-interest. And you're right. I totally missed a lot of that. And it's my fault. And, when you're the CEO of a successful company, you need to be more pragmatic and more prudent than I was. And I've learned a lot of lessons.
So and I'm going to ask the question, but maybe you've already answered it, is what is the most important thing that people don't know about your subject that they need to know?
You're right. I would say, as we talked about, so many things maybe aren't true. I think the fundamental way we handle that, though, is to have an open mind. I think Bob says to Cole in the book that, some of the smartest people he knows in the world are the people who say, I don't know. And especially in the country today, we're all so opinionated and we're all so fragmented and opposed that, and nobody's opinion is 100% correct. And Bob tries to teach that we need to have open eyes and we need to have an open mind so that we can live our best life and we can find our own truths. And I think that truth is what Bob is looking for, to see if he can get off that canvas one more time and get back in that competitive game of life.
Does it have to be competitive?
Boy, great point. Bob definitely became much more enlightened over his decade of a great challenge, and through many, many different things to be exposed to, many different religions exposed to, Bob became a lot more enlightened that, boy, if you just get up every day and put one foot in front of each other, try to spread love and empathy and give people inspiration and hope, it's going to come back to you 100 times over. And so he really, in his next chapter of life, was looking there to inspire Cole and to pass on this wisdom and not have to be so competitive and live life with a scoreboard.
Well, you have to make sure that the scoreboard has the right things measured, right?
The right things.
Nothing wrong with a scoreboard, but make sure you're measuring the right things, because you will get the results your scoreboard is measuring, and many times they have unintended consequences.
I think that's a great way to say it. And you're right. Things that you receive, the things that are measured. And so make sure you're measuring the right things. Can I steal that line? I want to use that later in another book or something.
Absolutely.
I like that.
I'm in the financial world working with business owners. And, when they ask a question or look for an answer, I don't say I don't know. I say it depends. Because what are you looking to accomplish? We can make 1 + 1 = anything.
Right.
It depends on what you want it to be.
I agree.
And so it's always the challenge. But the biggest thing I tell them is be careful what you incentivize your employees for, because you will get it and you may not like the results because of what you've set the scoreboard up to be.
That is a great point. With a lot of the corporations we work with right now, you see that their compensation plans are designed to be totally contrary to the goal they say they're trying to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
Human beings, all the way back, Adam Smith and Wealth of Nations, human beings operate in their own self-interest, even if that self-interest is aligned with the greater good and the company's good, which it all should be. And the problem is it takes so much more effort up front to set up employment agreements and compensation plans to be incentive-based that help the company and the employee prosper, that we all get lazy. I call it, we all get mentally lazy, and we just do these hourly wages or these flat salaries, and we guarantee then that we're not going to get what we wanted to achieve. And we're really, hurting the employee, hurting our teammate. And so we spend a lot of time on compensation plans, because I'm a huge believer that that's the biggest part of making any organization successful.
It very much is. And they need to be in alignment. You need to spend a lot of time, and then you need to put the math behind them to see whether or not they work and what the outcomes are and whether they're fair to everybody.
That's right. And it needs to be creative.
And be creative. Today's episode is sponsored by Profit Answer Man Podcast. Did you know that most small business owners hate looking at their financials? It's one reason they may struggle with business success. The Profit Answer Man podcast helps them ensure they are profitable and can pay their employees and weather the storms we all have to face. It's built on the Profit First methodology of pay yourself first. The Profit Answer Man podcast is a must-listen to for every small business owner and anyone who wants to help them survive and thrive. Check it out on your favorite listening platform. So one of the stories that I loved in there was the why not me, as you empowered Cole in there. That's funny. So we live next to a town called Redland. Redland's a little town and kind of like in the middle of nowhere, kind of like Ohio, right?
Yeah.
They had a baseball team.
Okay.
And they had this dream. They said, someone's got to win the Little League World Series championship.
Right.
Why not us?
That's great.
And so I didn't coach baseball. I coached soccer. And one of the kids who was on that team was Cole Wagner. It's funny that Cole comes. Oh, really? And so we watched them go to the Little League. It was amazing to watch them go and to win. And the hoopla and everything else that came out of it. And that was their thing, though. Why not me? Why not us?
Isn't that great?
And so with our soccer team, that was kind of what I brought back to them. Somebody's got to win. Why not us?
I know.
We went to robotics. We would set the thing. We go, someone's got to win. Why not us? Our goal is to win.
Right.
Let's go for the whole thing. So
I love that.
Tell me from your side, like, why was that the message for Cole?
Well, I remember watching the Super Bowl. I'm not bright enough to remember which one. Do you remember Russell Wilson, the Seattle Seahawks quarterback, even used that when he was being interviewed afterwards? Instead of saying, I'm going to Disneyland, he said, hey, when I was growing up, my father said, somebody's got to make the varsity. Somebody's got to be the quarterback. Why not you? And then somebody's got to, get an NFL contract, and somebody's got to win the Super Bowl even. Why not me? And so I've always adopted that theory, and I think that codifies it a lot better. But in my personal experience, as I got a little bit more successful and I got an ability to do more things, and I started meeting more successful people, and I would leave Virginia and I'd go up to Wall Street and I'd sit down with the CEOs of these top firms, the name of, and I'd come back and I'd tell the people in my little Virginia office, like, they're great guys, and they have all the same problems and worries that we do. In the middle of the meeting, the phone rings. It's his teenage daughter's having a meltdown about the prom. Whether you make $100 million or $100, you really have all the same problems. And it really helped me get exposure. And I think that's a huge thing that we need to help our children with, our employees with. Exposure is how you see the world and then how you win. And so I started to think, like, wait a minute, these guys in New York, they're not any smarter than we are. Their checks just have 3 or 4 more zeros on the end of them than we do, but they're doing the same thing we're doing. And that allows you to say, why not me? And it allows you to just have confidence. And as Tony Robbins is great, I love how he says, hey, don't get motivation by thinking about getting motivated. Action creates the motivation. If you just get up, take your buns and get to the gym, when you're done with the gym, you feel great. But what's the hardest part? Getting motivated to go to the gym. So action creates the motivation instead of motivation creating the action. And I think it's the same thing in business success. If we just kind of do it, there's not a lot of rocket science to it. And that really worked for me. And you go back and in the book, Bob gives young Cole just the little bit of nudge he needed to go talk to the beautiful woman at the end of the bar who ends up being a great success story. And so lots of times I think our job as the CEO, as the mentor, as the business owner is just give people those little nudges that give them enough confidence to say yes, to try it once. And then at the end of the time, they start believing in success. And the whole key to success is believing you are successful, and then you end up being successful.
Confidence is a very big part of it.
Confidence is huge.
I don't think they teach that in school either.
No, they should teach finance and confidence.
There's a couple other things they should teach, which are in the book, right? There's a lot of lessons around life and how to do kind of the basics.
Right.
Are there some favorites that you had lesson-wise out of the book?
Well, on all those things of opening your eyes, and even when you talk about some of the more tangible items where Bob says, hey, here's how you host a golf outing, and you think like, oh man, this is kind of crazy. Why are we spending time on this? You think about it. These are little things in life that you would never know unless somebody taught them to you. And that's what when people say to me, like, how do you know that? And I say, well, the only reason I know it because somebody took a moment in time, put their arm around me and say, listen, Martinovich, you're a knucklehead. You don't know how to do this. Here's how you host a golf tournament. Here's how you do something like that. So those type of more tangible things I wanted to include in the book also. And it's really funny. I've just been so blown away by the reviews on the book and the nice comments that people send me about, but it really seems that it's almost 50-50 difference in people who read the book. And it's maybe a left brain and a right brain thing, but half the people tell me how much they love the lessons and the actionable takeaways and all the things they gathered out of it. And the other half say, man, I just love that story about Bob. And so it's interesting. I don't know how to place that and who likes what, but I just thought it would be a neat way to not only teach these life lessons, but some applicable things that just help us live a life of class and grace, which hopefully, we can spread to everyone around us.
It's funny. My kids are in college. One's just about to graduate. And more often than not, they will call me. I'm doing X. Like, how do we do this? How do you set the table? How do you order wine? Like, how do you order wine? How do you pick a steak? How do you eat a steak?
What great examples.
And like, my son loves steak, and he'll blow a ton of his own money too, because he went out. They went out on a trip cross country, and they stopped in Vegas, and he's like, "This is the restaurant."
Oh boy!
And he ordered himself $100 plus steak, and he knows he wants it rare, and
that's great.
Like, this is how you do it.
Right. That's a super example. And, unfortunately, so many people in our society don't get an opportunity to have a mentor like that. Maybe they don't have a grandfather that takes them under their wing and, teaches them a few of those things. So I think that's kind of our role as business leaders and CEOs, is to really kind of help younger people. And of course, while we're doing that, they're teaching us how to properly use the internet, and one person does the work of what 40 marketing department people used to do. So we learn more from them than the other way around. But I do think that that's our role, and that's how we should give back.
And I agree with you. And I think this is one of the things that young people don't understand, is they're afraid to ask, and they're afraid to go to somebody who's super successful. And they're really, just the other day, I was on a call with somebody. He's like, I've struggled with this all the time. All these people who are so far ahead of me have helped me along the way, and I never feel like I could give anything back. And I'm like, in the back of my mind, you just taking action and creating success is all they want in return.
That's a good point. I think Bob even talks about how we're so intimidated by these successful people. But what we find out is it's not like the movies where you have the Devil Wears Prada or whatever kind of, real successful corporate raider, the Michael Douglas, maybe. These really successful people, the great bulk of them got there because not only are they incredibly bright, they're super good people, and they are so willing to help you and to be generous with their time and wisdom. And I think that's a big misperception that our society has. And, and we do, we try to, say that all these people are trying to out for themselves, when so many, the great majority, are super people. We just need to reach out to them and have the confidence to say, why not me? Pick up the phone and call them.
That's the one thing my kids struggle with. We have to get on a phone. Like, that is not
right.
a skill that young people have. They're too used to texting and going across social media channels. I'm like, learn to pick up the phone, build a relationship, schmooze a little bit,
That's right. Good
and that's
point.
how things get done.
Yeah. It has a chapter about the top 10 ways to throw a great party. And that's another, lost art, I think. Certainly the last couple of years, but, so much goodness and great business happens from inviting everyone over to your house for a party or a charity event or a wine tasting for the local children's hospital, whatever it would be, and having fun and allowing people to take a moment to be around people with good energy and good people. And then your job as the host is to spend all night connecting everyone with each other. And they'll always remember who connected them so that they do great business together. They become great friends. And that really is a lost art.
You know, I'm starting to realize how much maybe I'm out of touch with what other people do, because that's just so natural to me now.
Yes.
To host an event, to throw a party, to do all of these types of things are just, they're part of life. They're just what you do.
Most people don't do that. You need to invite more people over.
Well, it's Wednesday as we're recording this. And
yes.
Coming up in not too long is Whiskey Wednesday. It's a neighborhood event.
Oh, see, now that's a good neighborhood.
It's a very good neighborhood. Actually, we all went out to dinner Monday night, and I picked up the tab. They didn't know that.
Wow.
I was like, hey,
Woo.
Tonight's me. We'll do it. And that's the kind of neighborhood we live in. But it has been intentional to build that type of a neighborhood and
to
to
be proactive.
Build those kinds of relationships, and everybody helps everybody. And it's kind of like it used to be in the good old days.
Boy, that's super. And, that's what Bob how he tries to describe the bistro as a special oasis that through those doors, there's not judgment. There's no past. You're not stressing about the future. For those couple of hours, everybody can be good friends.
That they can. So I've talked to so many authors. You spend so long writing the book, you finally get it published, and off it goes. And then there's the ahas. Have you had any ahas once it's been released, just hearing back? And
well, I mean, it's been, because I had never written a book. I'm a first-time author. And I'd never taken the time or had the time. And then certainly I had the time imposed on me, which allowed me to do it. And it's been a miracle in so many ways. The aha moments are, one is, you can pretty much do anything you just take the time to do. I like to say that a lot with our companies that, all you have to do is try to do it. And I tried to write it, and boy, it was a mess. And it was an incredible experience. It was also very cathartic for me. I was also able to kind of tell the story without maybe being so defensive about it or trying to be a good person and telling the story. And so I think the aha moment was how well it was received and how many of my old friends and business associates have kind of come out of the woodwork to support me and been so kind to me that I'm just incredibly blessed that it has come full circle and I've made it out the other side of the tunnel. And certainly I have a long, long way to go. But boy, 2 years ago, I couldn't even imagine being here talking to you today.
Congratulations again.
Thank
you got to just keep showing up, right?
Keep showing up.
That is life.
Wow.
So what's the bigger purpose for the book, for putting all of this out there, for sharing your story? What are you hoping to do or hoping to change?
Right. I have kind of a short list of those type of things. And you're right. Getting a little older, going through some great trauma does give you perspective. And it also helps you narrow your focus a little bit. One thing I'd like to do is I'd like to be incredibly successful on this last chapter, myself and my family and my shareholders and all the people that I am lucky enough to do business with, because I think that would give a tremendous number of people hope and inspiration. And as you've mentioned earlier today, nothing is better than example. I'm a big believer that the only true leadership in the country is leadership by example. Everything else doesn't really count. So I really want to be really successful again for all those good reasons that I think it has a multiplier effect. I certainly also want to help the criminal justice system in our country. I was certainly very naive to that. I was carrying, I'm an Air Force Academy graduate, carrying the flag down the middle of the street for the parade. It took me to go behind the curtain to see what's really going on there. And then also, I'm a big believer. I love children's charities and veterans charities, and our companies before were really involved in, Jack Welch said it best. I think that the CEO of GE said, your company, your ethical, moral duty is to be as profitable as possible so that your employees lead great lives and have security. They have good retirements. Their children get good education. And the communities you live in are prosperous and balanced and thriving. And that's what I think. I'm a big, am I allowed to say capitalism? Am I allowed to say that? At least on this show I am, right?
And so you are.
I'm a big capitalist that believes that's what creates the goodness. And so I just want to do all that stuff. I bounce out of bed each morning super excited that I'm here, that I'm healthy. My family is healthy. I work with my adult son now. I didn't tell you this. When I got out of prison and came back, by some crazy miracle, being the advanced age I am, I also now have a 3-month-old daughter, little baby Carly, and now in the mix. So I mean, it's just a miracle. That's all it is. And so those are my missions.
They sound like amazing missions. And I know money is one of those taboo subjects, and we talk about it all the time. But at the end of the day, it is what makes the world go round, and you can use it for good or you can use it for evil. And correct. That is a choice that we all make.
Right.
And used properly, as you look around the world, the entire world is being lifted to prosperity. Not as fast as maybe some would like, and I don't disagree with that. But compared to what it is, it's an incredible journey forward, and more people have more and more opportunity than they ever have.
When you look at the true numbers of that, the number of people being lifted out of poverty every single day blows your mind. So I agree 100%.
Anything else that was in the book that you would like to share that we didn't get a chance to talk about?
Well, I would just say my favorite quote, poem, kind of speech of all time is the very first at the very beginning of the book. And that's Teddy Roosevelt's Man in the Arena. And many of us know that. But I think it's just symbolic of what's important today in our country, in our society, in our businesses, is we need to just step through the window and say yes to those opportunities. We need to overcome fear. Man, I know that I'm still scared to death every day of all the things that I've gone through, but that I know I will go through. And we need to be that man in the arena that gives it everything they've got and not be those timid souls, the critics in the stands. And I think it's just a great synopsis for us business leaders that, when you're successful, you're going to take a lot of shots. And there's going to be a lot of people with social media today. A lot of people are going to be taking some swings at you. And so your skin has to be thick. But, if we don't take that extra step, if we don't invest in that new company, if we don't hire those people and help them, then we're just going to, guarantee our defeat. So I hope everybody takes an extra second to read that first part of the speech. It's definitely my favorite.
What do you think prevents most people from taking that step?
Fear. There's two emotions on planet Earth, love and fear, and all emotions stem from those. And I believe in my crazy brain and the way I view the universe that we all came down to the planet this time on our missions. And the major mission is to overcome fear and keep growing and growing and growing. And I think that's the key to, pretty much everything.
We always like to get people to take action. What's an action step people can take this week to move forward?
Boy, you know what? I'll give you one not business one. I say it's pick up the phone and call the loved one or the relative or that best friend that you haven't spoken to in a long time because some silly argument, someone was wronged, and we hold these grudges and we keep this scoreboard of the wrong things. And I think if you can be the enlightened person and reach out and rebuild these relationships, everybody wins 100 times over.
I can't tell you how many times I've heard of conversations where there have been grudges and no talking within families for decades. And when they finally pick up the phone, nobody can remember what they were fighting about.
What it was about. That's so right. That's a great point.
It's just the emotion of it, but not the actual event that took place.
Right.
And that's a shame.
That is a shame.
It's time to learn the secrets of life. What's your secret to living an abundant life?
I think for me, it's constantly trying to remind myself in abundance versus scarcity. I believe that if we can be cheerleaders for everybody else, because boy, the world needs a lot more cheerleaders. If we can believe that the pie is infinite and not finite, that if our neighbor gets a new Mercedes, we cheer them on, not thinking like, man, why don't I get to have one of those? And the laws of attraction will come to us 100 times over. If we want to have people, why doesn't anybody give me any referrals for my company? But the guy who spends all day just giving everyone else referrals never has to ask for one his entire career. So I believe the key is just simply believe in abundance, and that affects your whole compass on how you treat everyone else.
Very true. It's a very fine line. And it's, even if you believe in one side, that scarcity still whips its little head out. And
does.
And sometimes you wonder, I've given so much. Where is my return?
Where's my return?
And that is always there. And the truth of the matter is, and I've asked people about this, the odds are ugly. It might be 98-2. But what they've said is sometimes those twos are grand slams, and you only need one to have an ultimate life. So you just keep doing it and you don't worry. Plant the seeds and one day it happens.
I agree. That's a super way to say it.
What did you learn later in life that you wish you would have learned sooner?
The list is too long for that. Oh, boy.
Read the book, right?
Yeah, there's so many. Through sports, I guess I've always been a pretty intense person and very competitive. And I think as we get a little bit older, we can keep that intensity, but we keep shifting it to be a good competition versus a negative competition. And so many times in my youth, I've lost my temper, or I've done things that I've just, I can't believe I did that. And so I don't want to use the word mellowing, because that's not what we want to do. But I think a better word would be refinement. So I always say, especially with our children, with our employees, we don't want to break their spirit because, gosh, man, it's hard to find somebody with spirit to begin with. So we just need to mold it. And, a lot of people helped mold my spirit, and I'm incredibly thankful for it. And so when I see some other people maybe doing some things as they're younger, maybe I give, my wife Ashley says, I give them too much of a break because they're younger. But I think it is true. I've seen myself. So maybe I would say the right word would be refining the spirit.
Comes with age and wisdom.
Comes with age, just like a good scotch.
If you were to give an 18-year-old one specific piece of wisdom, what would it be?
I would say yes. And again, this all integrates with a lot of the things we've talked about today. One of my favorite movies of all time is Jim Carrey's Yes Man, where he's leading this miserable life and then as a bank loan officer, and then he gets hypnotized to say yes. And he ends up being this miraculous, leading a miraculous life and getting the beautiful woman and learning to fly and speaking Taiwanese. And it's just so great to watch, but it's so true. And it's, when the software salesman calls you up for lunch and you don't have any time on your calendar, take 20 minutes and say yes. Or the person who says, hey, do you have a minute? Hey, do you have a minute? We say yes because so many opportunities are being presented to us all day long. The universe, as the poem says, it's not lining up all the lights to be green and, and that we knock down all the pins, but it's certainly not aligning against us. And so it gives us so many opportunities every day. I want young people to have the courage and the confidence to say yes, because you never know what's going to happen.
You don't. And don't forget to say yes to your kids.
Yes to your kids. Great answer.
Give them time and give them attention.
The most important person is the one in front of you right now.
So very true. If people would like to learn more about you, the book, what's the best way for them to reach out? And if there's anything else you'd like to share.
Thank you. The book is on Amazon, is where most of the sales are. The easiest way during our 6 or 7 websites, there's one website, simply my name, www.jeffmartinovich.com, and all of our speaking engagements and writing and consulting and coaching. It all kind of flows into there also. So I appreciate that very much.
And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. I really appreciate your time and everything you do and your books and all the business wisdom. It's fantastic.
Thank you for that. Why not you? I just love that saying. It creates possibility. And where there's possibility, success is possible. A lot of the book and a lot of the conversation is about the skills of life. And I have to ask, who taught them to you? Do you know how to entertain? Throw a party that people love? Network in a positive way? Connect with people? Handle the basic life skills like how to cook, how to sew? How to manage your finances or maintain your car. These are all things that we don't necessarily learn in school. But I have to say, when I was in school, a lot of those things were taught, or I was taught by my parents. Now, you can actually learn them all on YouTube. So there's no excuse to say, I don't have a way to learn. It's just a matter of, are you willing to take the time to try and learn those skills and try them out and do them in a different way? This week's action step was to pick up the phone and call someone you haven't spoken to in a long time. I did that just this morning. Well, not exactly. I did reach out to someone with a message that I haven't spoken to in a year and whose company I enjoyed. Life just got busy. So he'll be reaching back out to me and we'll set up time to chat and do just that. I encourage you to do the same. I know all of you are continuing to grow, and that's why you're listening to this podcast. You're continuing to learn. So congratulate yourself for that. Success requires us to say thanks to ourselves and to be happy about that. Next week on the podcast, I have Mike Zeller to talk about the genius within. He shares the 4-step process to increase your personal clarity and confidence so you can thrive. And that's what we're all about. If you enjoyed today's episode and know someone else who might, I'd appreciate you sharing it. Thanks. Have a wonderful week and be abundant.